Hello, friends, and welcome to the September 16th edition of Weekly Witness, Texas Impact's weekly opportunity for Texans of faith to learn about public policy issues here in the great state of Texas and how you can get engaged in that process. My name is Scott Atnip, Texas Impact's Outreach Director, and your host for today's conversation, which is being brought to you by Methodist Healthcare Ministries of South Texas. And we would like to welcome to the conversation Grace Chamane, the President of the League of Women Voters of Texas. Grace, thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
And I'm excited that you're back. You came during the legislative session. We had a good conversation then. But today we're going to be talking about National Voter Registration Day, which is September 24th. So what is National Voter Registration Day?
It's a day that came about in 2012, and the League of Women Voters is a partner in National Voter Registration Day. It's a fantastic day where they try to get businesses, organizations, communities of faith, and everyone to try to remember to get everybody registered in your state. It's a nationwide, almost a holiday.
All right, so you all are partners in this, and our hope is that folks listening, that congregations throughout the state will partner in promoting the National Voter Registration Day on September 24th. And so what kind of things might congregations be able to do?
Well, if they go to nationalvoterregistrationday.org, they can find a lot of information. They can put it out on social media that reminding their folks that they can register to vote. They need to, if they wanted to, or if they planned beforehand, they could have an event of registering voters at their local library or at their high school or at their daycare or at their community center. It's a great day to get out in your community and register people to vote.
So we hope that people will do that in and around September 24th, but this is something that people can do year round. And so if it's coming up too soon for you, maybe you can go ahead and use this opportunity to start planning for something for a future date. Is that fair?
Yes, that is fair. What I would love to have happen is I would love to have congregations around the state have a committee that encouraged their parishioners or their members to register to vote, and that they had somebody trained as a volunteer deputy registrar, that they had voter registration forms available at every meeting and available at their place of worship, and that they made it a part of their life, because it's very important that everybody is registered to vote here in Texas.
And if we're not registered to vote, or if people are not registered to vote, where should they go to do that?
Well, we do not have online voter registration in Texas, but you can go and register to vote in person. You can go to your county voter registrar. You just look up on your county website and go to your county voter registrar. You could reach out, if you have a League of Women Voters, you could reach out to one of them and they will come by and register you to vote. Or you can go to lwvtexas.org or vote411.org or the Secretary of State's website and fill out an application. But then you have to print it up, sign it, and mail it into your county voter registrar.
We'll have to talk about that process another day, about how we can make it easier. But for today, who can and should register to vote, and maybe who should congregations or other organizations kind of focus on in terms of helping them know that they can register or should register?
Well, more than likely, the people who vote already are more than likely registered to vote in this state. And so you would want to reach out to the people who are less likely to vote, which are people who are younger, because they move frequently. They have to update their voter registration. People who have recently changed their name, and so they have to re-register to vote. People who haven't voted in a long time should also register to vote. People new to your area have to register to vote. It's a great opportunity to reach out to these people and talk to them about the importance of voting.
Thinking of conversations I've had just today, right? Like I've got a couple friends who've moved, and when we were having this conversation, I checked in to make sure that that was true. But also, like just in our church, we have a young adult ministry with some college students. There are a lot of campus ministries out there.
Mhm.
There are food pantries, maybe. So a lot of congregations have different outreach ministries that might deal with some of those populations. And you mentioned earlier that being a deputy voter registrar was one way to maybe help people with that registration process. Is that true? And how does one become that?
Having somebody assigned or a group of people assigned to become a volunteer deputy registrar within your county is really important. They have to take some training and be registered or certified with their county voter registrar. It's not a hard process to do. They help people fill out forms, they turn in those forms, and that gets people registered to vote. You were speaking just a second ago about students.
Mhm.
That's a great population to work with because those students have the opportunity to vote back where their parent, if they're living away going to college, they vote back where their parents' house is, or they could vote where they're staying at college. So
Okay.
they really need to look at their voter registration and make sure they're happy with that.
Yeah. So who can register to vote?
You have to be a citizen of the United States. You have to live within the county that you're registering to vote.
And you just mentioned that can be, if you're a college student, for example, that could be where you're living or your parents.
Right. It could be where you live with your parents, or it could be where you live on campus. To me, if I were a student, I'd register to vote where I live on campus because I know it'll be easier to vote on that day.
Right.
Yeah.
And so how old do you have to be to register?
The great thing in Texas, you have to be 17 years and 10 months. You cannot vote unless you're 18, but you can register to vote at 17 years and 10 months of age.
Okay. Is it, I know there's a lot of attention, at least in the media, about the presidential election that is coming up on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, but that's still a really long time from now. Why would we be talking about voter registration now as opposed to
Well,
September 2020?
that is a really important election, and I want everybody to be up and ready for it. So they might as well practice voting. They need to make sure their voter registration is up to date and vote on the November 5th statewide election. There's 10 constitutional amendments we'll be voting on that will be a lot of fun to vote on. So
Yes.
practice your voting skills. Make sure you're registered to vote. And then remember that before the 2020 election in November, there's the primaries in
March 3rd, 2020.
March 3rd, 2020. So everybody needs to know you have to be registered to vote 30 days before an election.
Mhm.
Because Texas is old-fashioned and has not updated to online voter registration like most of the other states. They still think they have to carry things by horse and carriage.
Right.
So it's really important to make a plan with your congregation, with your committee who should be working on voting elections, and to make sure you have on your calendar 30 days before the election. You need to make sure you have already registered everyone in your community.
Yeah, and so you talked about it being a practice, and I think that's important to think about it from those terms. But the other thing that I hope people will think about is the fact that these lower turnout elections, like constitutional amendments and like primary elections, have far fewer people participating in that process, and so your vote counts a lot more.
Your vote counts a lot more, and also many communities have local elections.
Right.
I just deal mostly with statewide elections, but communities all over Texas are going to have local elections, school board, mayor, city council. Things are on the ballot. You can, on November the 5th.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to get out there and make sure you know what's on the ballot.
Yeah.
And practice voting.
And Josh has talked about this on Weekly Witness in the past, but those local elections, school boards, city races, county commissioners, those kind of things, those are folks who are passing or legislating things that impact our lives each and every day.
That's
So,
right.
and your vote counts a lot more for those races than does for president, certainly. So, so make sure you know when election dates are in your local community for sure. We have an election coming up November 5th, 2019, for constitutional amendments and for many locations around the state, local elections as well. So make sure that you're registered to vote and prepared to vote on November 5th, 2019. How can the League of Women Voters help us prepare for those upcoming elections?
Well, there's several ways. One thing that we're very famous for is our nonpartisan voters guide, and which is available before early voting for most elections. And it is at vote411.org or lwvtexas.org, or if you have a local league, check out their website. And it provides nonpartisan information from candidates. We ask them questions, they upload their answers. We don't change a thing. So whatever they say is the answer to their question, and you can review them and decide who you want to vote for.
All right, and is your guide up for the November elections?
Not quite.
All right.
It'll be up soon, but you can read what's going to be on the guide at lwvtexas.org. What we've done is what's going to be on the ballot, an explanation, pros and cons, and a short video done by our interns that are just wonderful.
All right. So Weekly Witness will have a series preparing people for the November election. We'll talk about many of the constitutional amendments that will be on the ballot, but I know you have a personal favorite. Is that right?
Prop 10 is my, I'm really going to get people out to the polls, because Prop 10 is about allowing dogs and horses that work as police dogs and horses, allows them to retire. And why is this on the constitutional amendment election?
That's a great question. I was wondering the exact same.
It's because they're considered property, and because they're considered property, there has to be a constitutional amendment to allow them to retire in a nice place.
So if you want dogs and horses, police dogs and horses, to be able to retire to a nice place, you should show up ready to vote on November 5th. And so in your voter's guide, you'll have pros and cons
Pros
for
and
that.
cons.
And I won't ask you what the pros and cons are now. We'll maybe revisit that later. But know
Okay.
that you can get that information on the League of Women Voters website, lwvtexas.org or vote411.org
Perfect.
soon. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So you all have a lot going on. Anything that you would like to shamelessly plug from the League of Women Voters today?
I want to let you know that we are having our 100th anniversary.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. We were formed 100 years ago at the St. Anthony Hotel in San Antonio, and we're having an anniversary celebration at that same hotel on October 19th, 2019, the same place where they had their very first meeting. We were formed in order to get women the right to vote and get people registered to vote. And that's one of continues to be one of our main missions.
Well, you've certainly done amazing work through those 100 years. How will people get more, or how can people get more information or RSVP for that event?
Go to lwvtexas.org.
Okay.
You'll find more information about events.
Okay. And I know we were having this conversation off air, but how many League of Women Voters, is it chapters? What are your regional?
Local leagues.
Local leagues. How many local leagues are there in Texas, and how can somebody plant a new one if there's not one in their community?
There are 34 local leagues in Texas, and they cover communities as big as Dallas and Houston and Austin and San Antonio, but they also cover suburb communities of those areas, and they cover smaller towns such as and counties such as Cook County, such as Lavaca County. The main city in Lavaca County is Hallettsville.
Okay.
So these leagues cover their community. If you have a league in your area, then you get to have a voter's guide for local elections. You could have forums where you could hear the candidates talk. It's a great time to form a league. And you know how to start a league?
How? I do, because we talked about this before, but why don't you let everybody else in on this?
It only takes 5 people. 5 committed people who are interested in our mission of empowering voters and defending democracy to form a league in their community. We are a nonpartisan organization. It's been around 100 years, and we'd love to have a league in your community so that you can register voters, get local voter guides, provide forms, and help empower voters in your community. So you could go to lwvtexas.org, start a league, get 5 friends together, and let's see it happen.
You really only need 4 friends if you count yourself.
There
right?
you go.
So hopefully some of you and 4 friends will go check out lwvtexas.org and consider starting a league in your local community if you don't have one. Or I assume at the same place you can find out if there is a league already.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else you would want to challenge folks with today?
I would like to challenge folks to celebrate National Voter Registration Day. Celebrate National Voters Registration Day by having share the events that are in your community. Have an event in your community. Put it on social media. Let everybody know it is the day to register to vote. Check your registration and vote.
All right. Well, we will have many opportunities to vote in the course of the next year and a half. So we hope that you and your congregations are doing everything within your power to make sure people in your community are invested in democracy, are figuring out how we can spread this movement to each and every person that we come in contact with. We've got some important work to do, and the League of Women Voters is certainly a great resource to help engage people in the process. So thank you so much for the work you do each and every day.
Thank you, Scott.
All right. So I will note that next Monday we will not have a live weekly witness. The Texas Impact team will be with many of the Courts and Ports Advocacy Intensive clergy who visited South Texas a couple of weeks ago. We're going to be visiting DC to visit members of Congress about what we saw and experienced on that trip. So we'll have some content on Texas Impact social media and hopefully in the podcast feed next week. We will not be having this time together next Monday. I'll be on an airplane, I think. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll look forward to continuing the conversation in the weeks to come. If you've made it this far in the program, we hope that you will consider becoming or supporting Weekly Witness in the Texas Impact and the Weekly Witness community by becoming a member at texasimpact.org/join. Thanks for tuning in. Until we see you next time.